Hey there, welcome to Yarnchix Podcast episode 52. My name is Mimi and I podcast usually in Berlin, and I talk about all sorts of yarny things. It's mainly knitting, sometimes crochet, sometimes sewing, often mending, and I welcome you to my strange, a bit homey, maybe slightly unusual corner of the podcast land here on YouTube, and I'm happy that you're here and taking some time to watch what I'm up to or listen to my meanderings in words. I am reporting from Bauwagen Isabel, which is a little wooden hut on wheels where we are so lucky we can escape to. We've had this place since 2017, I think, so quite a long time now. And we built a nice little bed in the corner, and then we set up like a little eating kind of benches and this table in this on the other end. And I found a vintage Czech kitchen with like sinks in a drawer for our kitchen setup. So we're kind of all set up. I already filmed a little bit of the fire. I might film a little bit of it again, and yeah, we have basically this space to go to summer and winter, and it's truly a privilege, and I'm very happy we got to be here. We had to come out because the storm had left some damage on some trees, and actually the scenery has changed a little bit. I shared some of that in my vlog recently, where you see we had to kind of cut down some trees, and yeah, we'll see if the next storm will cause more damage. This is kind of like out in the open, like a question in our community out here. you would have just had a little bit of a glimpse of the projects I wanted to show and the things I need to talk about. I have had such fun this year already sending out the zines to all my subscribers and all the people who ordered. I'm so happy. I kind of was blocked a little bit from writing and producing them, and I gave myself a bit of a push in December, but didn't manage to finish before a whole lot of crises and more stress at work. For those of you who might be new here, I work in 2 yarn stores in Berlin, and they are busy obviously throughout winter season here in the Northern Hemisphere, and we had a lot of kind of new rules and regulations considering COVID, and also staff shortages that needed to be covered. And it kind of needed to, well, it kind of took a lot of my energy. It needed me to be very present and alert and manage my engagement kind of for, well, you know, the day job. It took a lot of energy, and I still am kind of behind on rest and recovery from the season. Usually by the time March comes around, it's all like, whew, you know, you feel lighter, but not this year. We've had enough thrown at us, and I have covered enough hours to say that recovery will probably take throughout summer. So that is a fact, and I am still so pleased I didn't give up on my zines. I finished them in January and sent them all out. Then we had a really cool birthday event, which was on Patreon, because I wanted to keep it quite small, and also to say thank you for the support that I get throughout the year through Patreon. And I know I'm often a bit like overwhelmed with the things I try and plan to do, and I'd maybe not managed to do in January as I was still recovering from a busy December. I had so much fun doing the Vlogmas, and wish I'd kind of kept the momentum going, but also kind of felt a bit of weight and editing stress falling off me afterwards. So it took me 2 months until now I sit down to record. And yeah, I still have lots of fun with vlogs. So I've currently recorded a vlog which will be going up to the Patreon page, and I have had lots of ideas, because I did change the subscription of the zine, one of which I've got here. This is zine number 10, the Berlin issue. I love this cover. It was just like a watercolor joy that I did, and this centerfold. And yeah, it's kind of, you know, lots of knitterly and chats and recipes and political things, and it's kind of me in some pages and all my thoughts and convictions and my connections to people. So this time there's an interview with Keatscan, there's a centerfold by Rivka, and there is a weaving project which I'm about to show you my current weaving by my friend Anda. And so I really enjoyed making this very kind of home or Berlin connected zine, and I decided that because I want to have the joy of making the zine that is personal, and I want to just not have this deadline pressure that I feel like I'm always walking behind. I'm always delayed, and I felt like I should be more honest. I should be more honest and say this overwhelms me, and deadlines for my creative, like my art, well, it is truly creative and artistic. For that outlet, I need to wind down or step away from the deadline work. So the zines will now be available to all Patreon subscribers with 20% off. So you get you've got a code in your emails which you should have received, so that you can just order them cheaper through Etsy. And otherwise I will produce them separately and then obviously let you know when the new one is available, so you can just shop for it. But the subscribers and my Yarnchix Zenists, which is kind of a tier where they support extra podcasting and extra content, they will have other small things in the mail. And I started with a little watercolor. I'm going to add like some images in here that went out to the Zenists. And I will have mini zines and small products that I can kind of like that try out and get maybe a bit of feedback about like pins or stationery or yeah, things like that. I will send to my Zenists and subscribers depending on what tier you're supporting. So I've had an idea for a little mini zine, and I will try out new techniques and things like that. So it'll be more back to playful items, but definitely slow mail, because I love slow mail and I love making small snail mail. It's like mail magic and I love receiving it. So I thought, yeah, you know, you will get some mailbox art from me if you're a subscriber. So this whole idea of mail coming to you regularly still exists, but it's not the full-on zine as is, because that's takes a bit of pressure off of me for the zine making. And that has immediately been very fruitful. I'm working on a mending zine, so I'm very happy that maybe, yeah, the next couple of months I will be producing this zine, and I've already talked to some collaborators, so I'm very excited to make a zine all dedicated to the mending mountain that we have and hold, and maybe, yeah, some ideas and tips and tricks of how to tackle that. To end this kind of admin-y bit, I wanted to say zine number 10 and zine number 11 and zine number 9 are all up in my Etsy shop. I think I've recently sold the last Yarnchix calendar. Thank you so much for all of you who might have ordered one. These photographic calendars are made around October, November, and then they're available throughout February still, because this year I think I only really put it in the shop in December. I told you about my daily life, and so I think it was kind of what had to happen. I was very delayed this year, but I'm happy that the last one left the shop, and that, you know, if you have one, that you hopefully are happy with it. Yeah, so that is the end of my admin. Let's go straight into finished objects. Might have already spotted one. I'm wearing the Soirée sweater, and it's a really long-term whip that I had been working on for, I think, 3 years. Well, almost 3 years. No, I've been working on it for 2 years, but the yarn was bought 3 years ago at the last Edinburgh Yarn Festival with my 40th birthday money. I bought this really special Shilasdair yarn in indigo dyed, plant dyed colorway. It's knit from the Coara base, and it's indigo dyed, and I added some Tilia silk mohair, so that is from Filcolana. Don't know, sorry, stuff's going on outside. I'm being distracted. Okay, let's try again. So, this is the Soirée sweater, designed by Emily Foden from the book Knits About Winter. I used Shilasdair Indigo dyed yarn, and it's their Coara base, so it is iron weight yarn. And then I also added Tilia, which is a silk mohair yarn from the company Filcolana, which we sell at one of my jobs in this colorway which is called Rainy Day, and I thought it worked perfectly, although the Coara had more of that kind of indigo warmer blue and the Rainy Day is a bit more greenish. It kind of met in the middle, and I think the texture and color is perfect. I had to really hack the pattern because it's in the book decay version, so my gauge is actually completely different. I had much less stitches in 10 centimeters and had to really change it up a bit. So I knitted the smallest size, although usually I would have been the 3rd or 4th size, and you can still tell it's I think it's as boxy and as loose a fit as the design intends, but maybe it got a bit longer with the time of it being finished and worn now, which, you know, that's actually good. And then you have this really cool cable detail and this kind of netted structure going into the sleeve, like a honeycomb cable knit situation, and both the cables kind of meet on the shoulders on both sides. I loved knitting it, but by the time I was knitting the sleeves, which is basically where this project had been frozen for about 1 year, it was just living without sleeves, or actually half a sleeve done, is you actually have to knit this cable under the arm, and it was like I couldn't really grasp it. I ended up, when I did finally knit it now, using a cable needle. I think that was good. I know it was silly because it was like 2 stitches and cable needle for that, but at least I didn't have to kind of think like, how do you swap it and which way around, and it was like it was too complex for me. So the cable needle helped me make that process, you know, not faster but less brain foggy. So I'm super happy I finally finished it. Maybe you can tell with the sleeves they're slightly different. I don't know how I managed that. Maybe my arms are different, but also maybe I made a mistake. And so I'm gonna have to fix that. Like, I have to kind of add maybe another repeat in here before I cast off. I will do that sometime after the winter, I think, because right now I'm enjoying wearing it. It's so cold and crisp out here. It's the perfect sweater for this weather. And I've added this little fly cup pin, which is from Small Stories. It's well, definitely Scotland based. I think they're in Edinburgh. Illustration brand, and they do these pins, and we did a little swap of pins because they're also collect pins. And I love this little fly cup, which I do have a lot of fly cups, like, you know, on the go with my friends, so I think it's perfect. The other finished object I have to show you is actually this. It's a sweater which I didn't knit. It was a present by my friend Josh, and I can't believe it. She made me this really gorgeous, oh, excuse me, it's folded up. Really gorgeous ranunculus sweater. It is made from plötulopi, which is unspun Icelandic yarn, which I love. We sell this in the shop, and I've been meaning to knit a sweater with it, but I have not yet knitted a sweater from it. So now I own this sweater, and I didn't even knit it, and I can't believe, Josh, that you made me this. It's gorgeous. So it has this really structured, textured yoke, and then 3/4 length sleeves, and I asked for the super cropped version because I love wearing this, like with high-waisted skirt, high-waisted jeans. I've got a really nice dress that I'm currently mending, and I will kind of show that in Yarnchix Podcast 53, because it's kind of like a big amend project. Like my dress that I always wear to everything has been really worn down to threads, so I'm fixing that, and I think this will also look really nice with it. I'm sorry, it's now got this kind of fold down the middle because I've travelled with it. But isn't it gorgeous? I can't tell you how absolutely delighted I was to get this on my birthday, and I love the texture. So it's Plötulopi and Holst yarn Coast, which is a cotton wool blend, and it's perfect. It's so airy and light, yet so warm. So in these days where we're airing a lot at work from wearing it, it's been my kind of festive Saturday shift look with this really high-waisted blue skirt, and I get so many compliments, and I keep having to say, it was a present for me, I didn't even knit it. Yeah, I know, it's gorgeous, lucky me. So yeah, I'm super happy, and I'm still kind of gobsmacked that this is mine. So thank you so much, Josh. I wanted to show it here and show my appreciation for the amount of work that's gone into these stitches. I appreciate the care that was sent my way here. I could include some of my kind of how I style it videos, or maybe a little photo or something here, just so that I could round that part up of these kind of finished garments. However, there's two more finished things. There is the Laulu shawl that I had started and I finished up knitting in a little knit along with my friends Zara and Nora, and now Alice and Filina are joining, and maybe also Zilke, and maybe also, you know, I still have these maybes of people potentially joining us, which will be fun. So this is the Laulu shawl, and this red version is actually in the original yarns that Sari Nordlund suggests. The design of this cabled shawlette, it's a tiny shawl, is by Sari Nordlund, and she suggests the merino and soft silk by Knitting for Olive, which we sell at Wollen. So I used the original yarns in this bright red version. The colors are called pomegranate, which is Granatapfel in Deutsch. I love this color. It's really luminous and bright, and I think it works really well with this blue, for example. I would wear it like this. Yeah, it was so fun to knit this along my friends. There is the other version, which I'd started before I knit along, but you know, I still finished it now that we're kind of having this casual knit along. And this is using the hedgehog fiber tweedy. I don't know if you can see the kind of luminous neon speckles. Hedgehog tweedy is a yarn that is spun using the kind of leftover binding threads and kind of recycled materials that are hedgehoggy, and they are added in the spinning mill to this kind of greyish, light rosé beige. I don't know, can't really. The colour is very grey, but it has light shades of rose in it. And they kind of add it in as kind of specks in kind of the tweed manufacturing way. So that is hedgehog tweedy. Did I bring the leftovers? No, but I did like a little leftover calculations. So of the tweedy skein, I had 11 grams left. I paired it with the Zetazuri in this case, so an alpaca silk blend yarn that you can add in if you do not like adding in mohair. I've kind of, whilst knitting this sweater, realised that I have some sensitivity towards mohair, hence I'm wearing like a kind of turtleneck underneath covering my skin, and if I would have too much contact I start having a rash, or it definitely started whilst I was knitting on this, and it wasn't a nice experience, so I kind of finished with this mohair project and I will have a bit of a rest using mohair. So it was great. I tried out Zetazuri as a replacement and I didn't react to that whilst knitting, so fingers crossed I can get rid of this mohair sensitivity, or else like I can keep replacing it with other yarns. I finished these 2 Laulu shawls and then we're still kind of doing this casual knit along, so I cast on a new one. So this is where we go over to my whips, my works in progress, I suppose. So this is my 4th Laulu shawl, because one I already knit during, or at the end of Vlogmas I cast that on. And this is using Lang Cashmere Premium. Let's do this. So 100% cashmere yarn for my mother-in-law, lucky her. It's very soft and it works really well with the cabling. It's very different because it hasn't got this kind of fuzzy texture that the silk hair or the alpaca zuri yarn had added to it. But I still think it's super nice, and I like this really dark green inspired by Alice, who is one of my friends here in Berlin and who showed me the pattern and had bought like a really dark green merino knitting for olive soft silk combination and kind of said, why don't you knit this? I was like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of cool. It only uses, as I worked out, around 205 meters, and you can use stash yarns, you can pair stash yarns, or you can find a stash yarn and try and match it with something, and you definitely don't need much. So here I realized I've got around 210 meters in total, so it should be fine. I've calculated I have about 190 meter left, and I've already done chart A, the first chart of the cable pattern. Pattern's written very well. I think I ended up buying it at work through Ravelry, but I'm gonna double check if this is available in any other way and put it below here. If she sells it on her Payhip, then I potentially would have bought it through Payhip. If not, because I don't use my personal Ravelry account anymore, but at work obviously we have Ravelry, so I use it there. It's kind of my, I don't know, I'm torn. I still disagree with their kind of very ableist reaction and down-putting reaction when people did call them out on their new design, and they never really apologized to the extent that is acceptable. It was always still like, well, you know, you're making a big scene kind of behavior, and that is not really accepting of people's critique, is it? So I'm still like not using it and not adding my projects and stuff, which makes me sad. Like, I wish I had a place where I could do all of this. Let me know if you know a place where, you know, we can do that kind of chatter that's like extreme knitter and non-ableist as a online space. So I'd like to find it. So that's all my finished objects and my first work in progress. Let me show my other work in progress. And then I'll have a little bit of a chat about my sock alarm. Yeah, the other big work in progress is still from our stash vent. Maybe I've been a bit quiet about the stash vent, stash cowl, but I've definitely not knitted on it, as you can maybe tell. I think I'm going to try and put it on a thread to try and photograph it outside today whilst we're still here. It's huge by now. This is the Habitation throw by a curious handmade who's Helen Stewart. That's the designer's name. And it's this kind of holy striped shawl. It always has this kind of row of yarn overs. Sorry. And I used the stash vent that my friend Frauke sent me in our swap. I mean, I'm so lucky. She sent me this kind of hula pick, and there is some amazing plant dyed yarns by her own dye pots, and there's some lopi and another hula pick yarn, and then yeah, just really amazing yarns she'd sent me. There was some undercover otter, and yeah, lots of treats that I've still saved. I've got them all in here. Like, this is the undercover otter. I'm just waiting for it to go pow right through. But now that I'm using, now the stripes are thicker. Maybe you can tell they're like, these stripes are, you know, I don't know, I should have counted the stitches. Maybe I'll count the stitches and I'll put it down here. But they're like very long by now, so the little mini skeins won't make a whole stripe. So they would only kind of do half, and then I'd have to add another half. So I'm saving the stash went yarns, and I'm using some stash yarns. So it's like the stash went stash cal, like craft along. Currently using this, which is a sock yarn in this kind of, it's called Marzipan, this colorway by Filcolana, this Beta. And I really love it as a kind of base color. And I added it in with some of the kind of embroidery floss that was plant dyed. I think it's, I'm going to add the plant dye who dyes embroidery floss for all you who might be into embroidery as a little advice. Go check it out. It's really cool. And I added that in because I wanted to add some of the stash vent calendar. I wanted to knit into this massive throw. It will be a huge throw by the end of it. I still haven't decided when to turn, but I reckon it'll be soon, because it'll be like a big square. It will never go rectangular because of the way you start from the bottom, and then at some point you turn and cast off. So I'm still on the increase, so I reckon I've got about 1.20 meters maybe at the kind of middle width. I'm gonna like put a thread through it and check in a little bit because I'm nosy. And I'm so excited. I've added some Bairoa from Stash. I have a whole skein of hula pick in the Gold Digger colorway, which is a sock yarn, and I added a stripe of that, and I added some of my Lopi stash. And yeah, Bairoa, and then this was another hula pick from the Stash Went. Yes, it's like one of the skeins that Frauke had sent me, so I'm super excited to soon turn, and then it'll be smaller stripes, so using less yarn, and then I'll reintroduce some of the Stash Went parcels. So hooray for Stash Went. If you haven't watched my podcast before, Stash Went is actually a swap that I organize in our community, and it's so much fun. We basically make a countdown calendar from our own stash for someone else who uses their stash to make a countdown calendar for someone else, and it's kind of like a round swap. So you never give it to the person who gives to you, unless I sometimes had to do that this winter because there isn't so many people in Australia who signed up, and I think in America I also made a mistake and somehow it didn't work out in a different way. But usually you would be receiving a Stash Went calendar from someone who would have received it from someone else, and it's this really cool community event where we cherish our stash and kind of share it with someone else, and then celebrate the joy of stash in that way. And on that note, I know I'm late, but the last 2 months I've thought about it, so you know, I feel like I started from the beginning, but I'm going to be late. My sock alarm this year is actually also connected to a stash craft along. And I think I will only really manage to knit 2 pairs of socks this year. I'm a really extremely slow sock knitter. So I'm not joining in fully by saying I'll knit 12 pairs of socks and these are the 12 skeins that I've wrapped up for myself. But I will have wrapped up some special skeins and also some stash went yarns left over, like some sock yarns that'll remind me of the stash went calendars I would have made for others in the past years. And also like some of the yarns that I've left in my stash to make a color work sock. And the other sock I will make a textured sock, and I think the third sock I will still have to see. I think it'll be textured sock rather than colorwork socks. We'll see, because I like kind of mixing it up. And all of this to explain, I want to join in the M to the third sock stash along. So it's M to the thirds, that's Mackenzie's knit along, where you kind of wrap up your own stash for yourself throughout the year. You pick from this kind of stash calendar that you've made yourself and you knit a pair of socks following whatever pattern you like. And she's been running and they've been having prizes and so many beautiful socks have already happened, and I'm aiming to join in late. Like now it's March, maybe I should just kind of film a little. It was just like so technical. I was like, oh, they're filming reels to introduce themselves, and I don't know. I'm having a little bit of a social media overwhelm, and I guess this is like a shared thing for most of us. And I also don't want to always put out this kind of happy-go-lucky content because the times aren't like so happy. So I'm torn between the two things of carrying on doing the community efforts and kind of connecting to people worldwide to have these kind of joyous moments of knit stitches away from it all. But it's kind of also important to acknowledge that there is a war, invasion and a refugee crisis that is both also showing again how racist the system is, like how there's wars all over the world. There's a refugee crisis going on long term already, since forever. But how I kind of put a lot of emphasis about how I think Europe needs to open their border in the Mediterranean Sea, and that I really struggle to accept that there's so many people dying at the European borders, and it's not being supported, or actually money has been invested into the people pushing them back to Libya. And I really feel like that is a blind spot in politics, and that now the refugee crisis of people coming from the east is just as urgent and just as terrible, or maybe even more urgent. But even in that we see kind of the structures of racism that will always be dominant, and that cannot be, that we all need to work on dismantling. Even in our reactions to the crisis, I think we need to be aware when we kind of react quicker, and when we need this issue pointed out to us again and again until we realize, no, actually, this is like an ongoing crisis. So yeah, in all of this, I know our responsibility is to keep going at it as we are, because this whole thing is connected. It's a huge, let's say, it's a huge web of systematic wrong, and at the base of that is white supremacy. So if we're all pulling away in our kind of works of dismantling white supremacy, of kind of working against the harm patriarchy does, and if we're all working on our own anti-racism, and kind of doing these steps forwards, we are kind of pulling out the threads. I know there's small threads in the big huge web of the terrible situation we have all over the world that's bigger than us, but we just need to keep pulling at those threads. And I feel like the community efforts and connections are ways of us pulling at these threads, and maybe they will bring kind of more understanding of different topics. And uneven, unbalanced energies to the forefront of people who might usually just go, oh, I'm knitting to disconnect, but actually we're knitting to connect and to, you know, maybe pull at a thread with more force. And that's my hope. So I'm gonna get involved in that way again, but slower. I needed to kind of step away for a few reasons, I think energy wise with podcasting, but also because there's this huge sense of, you know, why do I do this, if and how come and what for and what will happen. So I'm really thinking of ways that I can maybe raise money. I have donated, and I find ways of trying to invest into kind of groups that are doing the right thing in this crisis. So I might add some links in the bottom of projects that I've supported so far, and I will come up with something. I'll keep you posted. And the same counts for my kind of yearly Knitters Tarot. Usually at the end of this podcast, which I've reached now, I will have a tarot card reading. I won't do it out here because basically I forgot my tarot cards, but I will pull tarot cards at home and add a tarot knit oracle in at the end, potentially talking about the ways of like how to pull at these threads stronger, or how to find ways of pulling efficiently at threads in our corners. I'm gonna also carry on working on my mending zine because I feel strongly about the disproportionate imbalanced energy connected to garment and garment work, and how it's really good to mend and to make things last longer, and you know, that the whole side that is anti-consumerist of mending is what I really enjoy. I have a pair of socks to mend, I've got a dress to mend, I've got so many projects there, and I'm gonna make sure they all appear in the zine, and they will appear here. I'll leave you with the thoughts of unpicking or pulling at threads and working away at this. And I hope that I've reached you in a moment that was good for you, that you had a moment to rest and to listen, and that you yourself feel like you've got a thread in your hand that you're pulling at that is dismantling some sort of imbalance, both personally but also on the bigger picture. I hope we're undoing a lot by making things as well. So thank you so much for tuning in today, and for sitting with me and potentially knitting and crafting. I wish you a very happy International Women's Day, because that's where I think I'm gonna upload this. And look after yourselves. See you soon. Bye. I think because of my mind, I was like kind of, why don't I add this knit reportage at the end, where you will see where I go and weave, and I will add some of my vlog content, and I'll quickly show you my weaving project, and it'll be more of a knit reportage of what else to do with your kind of stash or yarn leftovers. In this case, it's actually more precious yarns, because I actually bought the yarn for this project, but it was still a Christmas present. So my second Christmas present weave is this really cool dark green, and look how much I've already got on my backstrap loom. I'm weaving with Snefnuk, which is a Kamarosa yarn that we sell at Vollen, and it's super fluffy. I've got it here on my boat, whatever you call it, shuttle. It's cotton, merino and alpaca blend. So it's like a tube yarn that's had the fluff blown inside of it. So it's very airy yarn. And we made these backstrap looms around Christmas time. And luckily let me choose my own colours. So I've got 2 of these kind of handmade laser cut, crazy coloured. I love my shuttles. Look at these shuttles. And this pink is actually my favourite, absolute favourite heddle. And yeah, I've been doing this in like single colour. I'll kind of share some studio time weaving moments. I'm hoping to finish this project, and I love weaving as a craft because I'm like backstrapped in. I've got to sit, I've got to focus, and it helps me. It's a really nice way of making presents as well.